heard the afternoon session of day 13 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 1. The remainder of the evidence from HN... I can't think. 56, yeah, I've only typed it about 1 million times today. But yeah, HN56, who infiltrated the BNP, the first far-right undercover cop we've had. I'm joined with Eveline Lubbers and Donal Driscoll from the Undercover Research Group. So guys, what do you think of this afternoon's hearing?
Well, it is interesting insofar that it is the first BNP, like you said, that we heard of. Although he was put into a group that was hardly active or hardly even existed. They didn't have meetings. He was just sitting in a pub until they would turn up and would maybe do something. So that's quite weird. And he
literally for the first 2 months of his deployment, he sends in one report, which is like, I went to the pub. And then the second report, which is like, I read a copy of the newspaper and he has some thoughts about things that are in the newspaper. And then the British nationalist, and then he didn't file a report for 2 months at all.
So basically, they say the group is moribund, which shows how terrible their intelligence is. He does literally sit there spending. It works out he's got an average of 1,000 overtime per month.
Like £1,000 in like 1990s, like £3,000, right, a month in today's money, on top of his normal wages.
And he's also getting paid to drink 4 nights a week in order to make contact. And he's clearly really just enjoying his job. Like, he's sent in to be tough. He's got a black belt in karate or whatever it is.
And big muscles. Don't forget the big muscles.
And he simply sits there and it's like there actually comes out at some point later that his managers get annoyed with him because he's putting in so little effort. And I think for me one of the key questions was, had you heard of Welling? No. It's like, you're in the BNP, you're trying to target the BNP, and you don't realise that they've got a headquarters in Welling, which is where the Battle of Welling happened several years later. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know there's a group in Tower Hamlets and that's where all the racist attacks are. He just disassembles, didn't really know, he wasn't really paying attention. And the barrister actually said, you're in special branch. Your job is to monitor political groups and you don't know the basics of the group that you're actually targeting. And he clearly does no work to actually chase up, and they actually at some point say, you're not really producing anything, you're not actually doing any work. And there's a whole question, I think, over why he's there, and it's like there's something that's not why he's there in the first place. So the final point on that one, I think, which relates to all that, sorry I'm talking a bit, is that the BNP organised event just down the road from him, because there's a key organiser just down the road. He doesn't know about it. It's like, what are you doing there? You're spending all this money on, where is this overtime going? Where's all these drinks going if you don't even know the basics?
I mean, I think that event particularly was really interesting because he goes to this rally, which is just down the road from where he's deployed, which he happens to live very close to one of the main organisers of the BNP, but he doesn't manage to make any contact during his deployment. But then I got the impression there was an element where he goes to that conference or the rally and maybe shits himself a bit, because then he suddenly sees all these other BNP members. Like, it's okay with him with 2 men and a dog in wherever the hell it was. But seeing all the Tower Hamlets branch of hardened street fighters who are, kind of used to kicking shit out of people on a regular basis. And he starts talking about when he's then later on, he's told to go to a meeting somewhere else in London. He's like, no way, they'll beat the shit out of me. Because how will they know that I knew about it? And, it's not for me to just turn up this is a public meeting, right? Do you know what I mean? So he's obviously had the fear put into him about what the BNP are. There was another bit actually about how another undercover officer who was in. So these are one of the undercover officers who's got. We don't know their real name. We don't know their cover name. We don't have a cipher for them, such as their security, such as the amount of restrictions on them. There was an officer who was also deployed into the far right who asked him his cover name in a backroom meeting, which apparently shocked a number of undercover officers because apparently it was taboo to ask for your cover name. And this led him to think that perhaps he was going to be exposed by another undercover officer to the far right, which, I mean, we've talked about the lack of professionalism of these units, but I mean, that's another fucking level, right?
Well, it had happened just before he was at a gathering where Bruce Kent, some higher up BNP person was, and he was with a man.
No, Bruce Kent was high in the CND. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, no, I forgot the name. Anyway, he was with a mate from his own group,
Yeah, yeah.
and that mate.
Dave Reed, I think it was.
Yeah. So that mate was called to this higher up BNP person, and they talk a bit, and they a finger is pointed at him.
He said that the finger was put onto the nose, like making that, the
Yes,
pig image.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the nose.
Yeah, so at that moment he really thinks that it's going to be exposed, and that they know that he's a police officer. So he basically, in a statement, he puts these two things together. You know, like that, like maybe his cover name has been shared with BNP people. There's another thing that is quite weird that I don't know if we discussed that earlier, but he suggested that he would apply for membership because that he thought was the way to get in, and then management doesn't agree with that. They think it's too dangerous, I think, and then he does it anyway.
Eventually, like he said, didn't do it at first. It's when he does finally come to do it. The BNP mates he's made are like, why have you waited so long to apply? What's that about?
Yeah, and they come around the next day, so they come and see where he lives and whether he is who he is, which also that is a weird detail as well, because his undercover house, his stuff he's renting from a Jewish family. From how I understand it, it was an independent flat, so. Then he was not in their house, but he knew they were Jewish, but he didn't think it was a risk that him infiltrating in the BNP and living in the house of a Jewish family was a problem. Well, they came around to see where he lived and whether he was actually who he was. So that was indeed a risk for that family.
There's just so much about this deployment that doesn't add up. Like, you said, so Loughton is in the Metropolitan Police District, but it's right on the edge. It had been active, but it hadn't been active for a while, and there's clearly other things. It's like if you're going to go, it's going to be Tower Hamlets or Bethnal Green or Brick Lane or the East End of London. So you have somebody sent out for a year doing nothing. I think what's happened is they were, we better look at the far right. We better do something. We'll put something on the books. Here's a nice little jolly. It's like, you're safe here. He's not really a player, and he does not come across very well in this. Either he thinks we're all stupid or he's stupid. So he's just, the way he tried to play us today, it was appalling. But I think someone was discussing this earlier, it was like something that might have happened is they realised they have something in the far right. The far right are starting to really kick off. They go, well, why isn't he producing intelligence? You better go to where they are. And suddenly he's asked to do the real job. And that's the point he freaks. He's no longer just on a nice little Sinsecure out in the countryside, not doing much. He's actually required to do some real undercover policing, and that's where he goes, no, that's not what she was saying. And there's also things like, how some high-ranking officer comes up and gives them a handshake. Well, let's think about the handshakes. They're all over this. And says, well done for admitting that it wasn't the right place to be or something like that. And
Well, it wasn't man enough for the job.
man enough for the job. And it's just, yeah, basically you weren't man, good thing you didn't stick with the BNP where you would have seen a lot of other police officers, because there was an account of somewhere else where there's a police officer thumbs up a picture of himself in front of a right-wing newsletter, but this is when he's in uniform. It's like, nothing about this smells right.
Yeah. I mean, literally after he says basically he has this meeting with I think it's DCI Gray and HN56, who are asking him to go to this other BNP meeting. And he says, well, they say to him, go home and think about it. So he goes home, speaks to his wife, sleeps on it, gets up, goes to his cover address, packs up his car, drives to see one of the members of the BNP that he's made contact with, tells him he's lost his job and he's going to move back to Switzerland, walks this other guy to his car so this guy can see that all his stuff's in the car, gets in the car, waves goodbye, drives off, drives to a barber shop, gets his hair cut, gets his beard shaved off, goes and puts a suit on, and then goes and meets with his management again and said, I've withdrawn. And it's like, we've heard so many stories about complicated ways. There's so many officers have withdrawn. It's taken months. They've laid down like all these things, this trauma and stuff. And he's just like, nah, fuck that. I'm doing it in like 3 hours flat.
And the managers are like, they're annoyed that he's made a decision, and then they bring in another high up manager where it's, oh, there's been a miscommunication, and you see, and he's going, oh, you can see I've made my decision. There's no comeback that he's made his decision unilaterally, and there's clearly two strands going on here. Why is this other manager just going, oh, that's okay, miscommunication, we'll smooth everything over?
He says he was back in Scotland Yard on the Monday morning. I'm not sure which day of the week this was meant to have happened, but he's back on the Monday morning working on a case that he'd been working on before he joined the SDS. So, like, back in Special Branch, just carried on as if like there was all a bad dream, or rather like a boozy, enjoyable dream by the sound of it mostly. But yeah, I mean, something stinks. You've got the impression, because there were so many officers who were related to his deployment that had so much secrecy, you really got the impression there was some things which really annoyed him about. I mean, often we find the things that really annoy the undercover officers actually turn out to be really mundane stuff. I mean, we had one officer in Tranche 1 who was really annoyed about something, and when it came out what it was the quality of the cover accommodation he'd been given. So just because someone's annoyed about something they're not talking about doesn't mean it's anything important. But he was clearly annoyed about something that he couldn't talk about because it was so difficult, and there was such a close questioning, like, don't veer outside. He was stopped a couple of times from saying things. We had 3 restriction orders today. These 3 times he messed up and said things that he shouldn't have. I mean, I would say they were all pretty bloody mundane. And anybody who thinks, oh, there are secrets, I mean, there's nothing that we've learned from those 3 slip-ups yet. I mean, maybe, but like, maybe one day there'll be a slip-up that'll be useful, but none of them today were.
No, and I think there was another thing. There were 2 other things. One, there was the Stephen Scott affair. We still don't know all the facts about it, but apparently the entire SDS at that point was split in people who thought Scott was a scumbag and others who kind of defended him, and management, like sort of people like Lambert and Dines played a very important role in this and were able to send the managers away to sort of deal with stuff themselves.
That wasn't Scott, that was HN4.
Yeah, so there were 2 different issues, but the atmosphere in the squad was like bad, very bad, and all kind of stuff with drinking, drunk driving happened.
But also you have a situation where the managers clearly are not in control.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like drink driving really seems to have been a hallmark of the undercover cops. Michael Jacobs, who infiltrated the group I was in, was a regular drink driver. Probably the only one I've known of the modern era.
So on the drink driving, is like in previous, I think, can't remember which exactly one, but he's got 4 separate road traffic accidents within the space of a year. It's just like, and Lindsay Bonzer has ones like, how you're going to the pub, drinking with activists, they all say this, and then they go back to the cover or go back home and they're all pissed.
I mean, even like today, actually, HN56 said that, it wasn't a drinking culture within the unit, because even though all the meetings were in the pub, they always had a drink, but they'd only ever have 1 or 2 because they had cars. So obviously they wouldn't be drinking too much. And it's like, well, except for those guys who kept getting them for drink driving there. Mate.
Well, that was HN4 was a drink driving accident. Now he's done something that's annoyed them, but it's not the drink driving that's annoyed him. It's how he's responded.
Yeah. There's a lot of things, like we didn't really get to what the other thing was that annoyed them. But I mean, it's very clear that the HN56 really didn't like John Dines. Really didn't appreciate what he called the Star Court chamber of like a questioning of HN4. He felt that HN4 should have been removed from the unit, but they were being cruel to him in some way. There's a lot of interpersonal politics around these officers, which we're getting glimpses of, but not really fully getting fleshed out.
And I think it's important to say that they've all got their own internet relationships, because it's very clear that Dines and Lambert are very close. But HN56 was very clear to also Dines. It's not Lambert, it's Dines and another officer, or HN8. And yeah, they're all. We've got to be quite wary of. There's a lot of office politics going on and management styles, and a lot of them are really critical of one manager who's basically trying to say, sort your shit out, but they're like, oh no, he's too authoritarian.
One of the last questions he was asked, because he said that he said he never heard anything sexist ever in the SDS, never, ever, ever, never, would never be, couldn't even imagine anybody saying sexist in the SDS. But they wouldn't have sit around him anyway, because he would have been known to the sort of person who would challenge it. To which he's asked, was there anybody else who might have challenged it? And he gave a short list, which he wrote down. But like one of the names that came up was Bob Lambert. You know, Bob Lambert was the kind of guy who would call out sexist behaviour if he ever saw it. And it's just like, for fuck's sake.
He had 4 relationships and fathered a child. So it's like he's hardly an example. Although he didn't share that with his colleagues. Or so he says.
Well, I think this is a classic example of how HN56 thinks the rest of us are actually stupid. You know, and that we're not going to see that he's trying to pull the wool over his eyes, and there's this whole style of where he's responding, answering, and suddenly not knowing stuff, or being confused. Classic tactics. But yeah, really felt that he was taking us for a ride.
Yeah. Right. So this morning at 10 a.m. when we started, Sir John Meeting opened by saying, "Hopefully it'll be a short day today." It's
famous last word.
Yeah. It's now 6 p.m. And we're still here, so I think we're going to call it a day. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, we will be back tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm afraid so.
What can you add to that?
So day tomorrow is day 14 of tranche 2 phase 1. We'll be hearing from Lindsay German, who was meant to speak on Monday, but because the huge overrun of the undercover officer, I can't remember his bloody cipher anymore.
There's another update on that one.
Oh, right. There's more updates. What's the other update?
It was the one from yesterday, but next week we're going to be sitting Wednesday as well. The Lewis family are going to have their statement read out there when the family of one of the dead children, whose name was stolen by HN58 Trevor Morris. HN78 was Trevor Morris, let's use his real name. Was meant to be just sitting Thursday and Friday. He's now also going to be sitting half day on Wednesday as well. So this will be the longest single session of any undercover officer. So next week is going to be a big week.
Yeah, busy week next week. It was meant to be a short one, but we're going to be in Monday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday next week.
And Monday is also important because it's B and Jenny will be giving the evidence on relationships for him.
Yeah, so more changes, but we'll be back tomorrow for Lindsay German. It was meant to give on Monday, but got moved because of the overrunning undercover cop. Thanks for joining us. I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces later on this evening. I don't know why I do so much stuff. It's fucking mental. Right, cheers. Bye.